I bet you've never seen a father count down the days until his wife died just so he could throw his daughter out on the street. 3 days after my mother's funeral, my father stood in her favorite room, holding her will like a winning lottery ticket. $33 million, the family home, complete control. Everything he'd been waiting for. He looked at me with eyes I'd never seen before, cold and calculating, and said the words he'd clearly rehearsed. Pack your things. Your mother can't protect you anymore. What he didn't know was that Mom had been watching him too. For 2 years, she'd documented every cruelty, every stolen credit, every betrayal. While he counted days until her death, she was building something extraordinary, a legal trap that would destroy him at the exact moment he thought he'd won everything. Hello, everyone. I'm Olivia Henderson, 32 years old, and today I'm sharing how 8 years of humiliation ended with my father losing his empire in front of 300 witnesses, all because he couldn't hide his true nature for just 30 more days. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. For 8 years, I'd been the ghost architect of Henderson Development Corporation. My father Richard was the CEO, the face on magazine covers, the man who accepted awards for innovative design vision. I was the permanent intern with an MIT degree, drawing blueprints at 3 in the morning while he took credit at 9 a.m. board meetings. Olivia's here as a learning opportunity, he'd tell clients when they asked about the young woman frantically sketching in the corner. Family businesses need to teach patience before leadership. My mother Eleanor would intervene gently. Richard, she designed the entire Metro Plaza complex. Perhaps some recognition. Recognition is earned through years of proving yourself, he'd cut her off. Not handed out like participation trophies. The Metro Plaza project had won 3 architectural awards. My name appeared nowhere on the submissions. The email he'd sent me that week still burns in my memory. Don't sign the drawings. You're not at that level yet. This is for your own professional development. My salary? $45,000 a year, while the industry average for someone with my experience was $120,000. But I stayed. For my mother. For the family peace she desperately tried to maintain. Then came March 2024. The oncologist's words were clinical, precise. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 3 to 6 months. Mom started meeting with someone named Michael Torres every Tuesday. Estate planning, she'd say with a strange smile, making sure everything's in order. My father, meanwhile, grew bolder with each week of her decline. By September, he wasn't even pretending to review my work before stamping his name on it. The Century Tower project exposed the true depth of his exploitation. $500 million worth of mixed-use development, 47 floors of revolutionary sustainable design. I'd spent 14 months perfecting every detail, creating something that would redefine Boston's skyline. This needs to be flawless, my father had said, dumping the initial brief on my desk. The investors expect Henderson excellence. I delivered beyond excellence. The environmental systems alone would save 30% on energy costs. The public spaces created community connections that urban planners would study for decades. Every floor plan maximized both efficiency and human comfort. Yet when the preliminary designs went to the investors, the cover letter read, "I'm pleased to present my vision for Century Tower, Richard Henderson." "It's just business protocol," my mother said weakly from her bed when I showed her. She'd lost 40 pounds by then. "Your time will come, sweetheart." But I'd discovered something else that September. While organizing Mom's papers during one of her chemotherapy sessions, I found property transfer documents dated 2 years earlier. My father had systematically moved all joint assets into his name alone. The house, the investment properties, even Mom's inheritance from her parents. "It's for tax purposes," he'd explained when Mom questioned it through her morphine haze. "Trust me, Eleanor, I'm protecting our family's future." Our family. As if I was ever truly included in his definition of family. The night before Mom died, she grabbed my hand with surprising strength. "The foundation," she whispered. Remember the foundation, Olivia. I thought she was delirious. The morphine had been increased twice that day. I had no idea she was giving me the key to everything. October 15th, 2024, 3:47 a.m. My mother drew her last breath while my father was sleeping in the guest room, claiming her medical equipment disturbed his rest. I'd held her hand through the night, whispering memories of better times. She'd been unconscious for hours, but I needed to believe she could hear me. The hospice nurse marked the time, offered condolences, and quietly began the necessary calls. My father appeared at 6 a.m., showered and dressed in his expensive suit. "How long?" was all he asked. "3 hours ago." He nodded once, pulled out his phone, and called his lawyer. Not the funeral home, not family. His lawyer. "James? Richard Henderson. Eleanor passed this morning. I need the will reading scheduled immediately. Yes, today if possible." The will reading happened that afternoon in our living room, the same room where Mom had hosted 30 years of holiday dinners. James Whitman, my father's golf buddy and personal attorney, read the simple document with practiced efficiency. "To my beloved husband, Richard Henderson, I leave the entirety of my estate, including all properties, investments, and liquid assets totaling approximately $33 million. My father's smile was subtle but unmistakable, the kind of smile he wore after closing a particularly ruthless business deal. "There's nothing mentioned for Olivia?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Whitman glanced at my father before answering. "The will is quite clear. Everything goes to your father." My father leaned back in Mom's favorite chair, the leather creaking under his weight. "Your mother trusted me to take care of things. Don't worry, Olivia. You'll be fine." The way he said fine made my skin crawl. Without my mother's protection, my position at Henderson Development became immediately precarious. I had no employment contract. My father had always insisted family doesn't need paperwork. My entire professional identity existed only within his company. 8 years of work, but my resume would show nothing but intern at a family business. I lived in the family home, the same room I'd had since childhood. My father owned it now, completely. Every piece of furniture, every photo on the wall, even the desk where I'd designed Century Tower. All his. The morning after the will reading, I found my office keycard deactivated. Security called my father for approval before letting me in. "Just a system glitch," he said loudly enough for the entire floor to hear. "You know how technology is. Olivia's still learning our protocols." Still learning. 8 years and $40 million worth of successful projects later. But Century Tower was my leverage. The project was set to break ground in 3 months. The investors had approved the designs, my designs, and any major changes would trigger contract penalties of $50 million. The presentation to secure final funding was scheduled for October 25th at the Ritz-Carlton. 300 attendees, investors, city officials, international partners. If I walked away now, if I let him present my work as his own to that audience, I'd never recover professionally. He'd destroy my reputation with a few well-placed words about the intern who couldn't handle the pressure. That evening, an email arrived from Torres and Associates. "Urgent matter regarding your mother's estate. Please contact immediately." I almost deleted it. What could be urgent about an estate that had already been distributed? My father was in his study, on a conference call about Century Tower. "My vision," I heard him say. "My masterpiece." October 18th. St. Mary's Cathedral was packed with 200 mourners. My mother had been beloved in Boston's charity circles, her kindness touching countless lives. The flowers alone filled 3 rooms: roses, lilies, and her favorite purple orchids. My father delivered the eulogy with practiced perfection. "Eleanor was the ideal partner," he said, his voice carrying just the right amount of grief. "She understood that a successful man needs a supportive wife. She never complained, never demanded, always trusted my judgment in all things." He was rewriting history in real time. Mom had been a force, quiet but powerful, the one who'd actually built the company's reputation through her connections and grace. After the service, as guests gathered in the reception hall, my father clinked his glass for attention. "I want to thank you all for coming," he began. "Eleanor's passing leaves a void, but I want to assure our friends and partners that Henderson Development will continue strong. In fact, I'll be making some necessary changes to ensure our continued excellence." He looked directly at me. "Olivia will be transitioning out of the company within 72 hours. It's time she found her own path, away from her father's shadow. Eleanor always protected her, perhaps too much, but now—" He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "She needs to learn to stand on her own feet. The house, of course, will be transitioned as well. A fresh start is best for everyone." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mrs. Blackwood, Mom's best friend, grabbed my arm. Even the mayor looked uncomfortable. "Find somewhere else to die," my father said quietly as he passed me, his voice covered by the shocked murmurs. "Your mother isn't here to protect you anymore." My Uncle Harold, Mom's younger brother, slipped me a business card. "Call this number," he whispered, "tonight. Michael Torres, estate attorney." Can you believe it? A father saying those words at his wife's funeral, in front of everyone who loved her. If you've ever faced betrayal from family, you know how this feels. Comment below and let me know where you're watching from. And please subscribe if you want to hear how justice was served. That evening, I found my father in his study, already on his third scotch. The funeral guests were gone, the house eerily quiet without Mom's presence. "You have 48 hours now," he said without looking up from his laptop. "I'm being generous. I designed Century Tower, every single detail. Prove it." The files are all time-stamped. The security footage shows the files on company servers, the footage from company cameras. He finally looked at me, his eyes cold. "Everything created on company time with company resources belongs to the company, and I am the company." Mom would be disgusted. "Your mother was weak. She coddled you, made you believe you were something special. You're not. You're a mediocre architect who got lucky being born into the right family." Lucky? I've worked 14-hour days for 8 years. 45,000 a year while you build clients 200 an hour for my work. Then you should thank me for the education. The Century Tower presentation is next week. You need me." He laughed, actually laughed. "I've already hired Brennan Associates to review the plans. They'll make any necessary adjustments. Your amateur work needs professional polish anyway." Amateur? The Metro Plaza won 3 awards. My awards, my designs, my signature on every document. He stood, towering over me. "You have nothing. You are nothing without the Henderson name, and after Monday you won't even have that. I'll go to the investors myself. With what credentials? What proof? You're an intern who's about to be fired for incompetence and trying to steal credit for her father's work. Who do you think they'll believe?" I turned to leave. "8 a.m. Monday," he called after me. "Be gone or I'll have security escort you out." October 19th, 7 a.m. Torres and Associates occupied the entire 25th floor of the Prudential Tower. Michael Torres himself met me in the marble lobby, his expression grave but kind. "Your mother was a remarkable woman," he said, leading me to a conference room overlooking the city, "and far more strategic than anyone realized." He placed a folder on the table. "The will read at your house was real but incomplete. There's an addendum, filed separately with my office 6 months ago." My hands shook as I opened it. Mom's signature, dated April 15th, 2024. The document was 12 pages of dense legal text, but Torres highlighted the key section. "If Richard Henderson commits any act of cruelty, abandonment, or denial of inheritance rights toward Olivia Henderson within 30 days of Eleanor Henderson's passing, all assets shall immediately transfer to the Eleanor Henderson Foundation, with Olivia Henderson as permanent chairwoman." Mom knew? She knew everything: the stolen credit, The financial exploitation, your father's affairs, yes, plural. She documented it all. Torres pulled out a tablet. She also recorded this. Mom's face appeared on screen, thin but determined, dated June 2024. If you're watching this, Olivia, it means your father has shown his true nature. The foundation has existed since 2022. I've been transferring assets to it slowly, legally. Your father's signature is on every document. He never reads what I give him. The foundation controls 45% of Henderson Development through various holdings. With the inheritance assets, you'll have majority control. But the will reading. Your father triggered the clause at the funeral. I have 12 sworn affidavits from witnesses who heard him evict you, plus this. He played an audio recording. My father's voice crystal clear. Find somewhere else to die. When do we act? The Century Tower presentation. Maximum impact, maximum witnesses. Torres laid out the complete picture, and it was breathtaking in its scope. My mother had been playing a long game I never imagined. The Eleanor Henderson Foundation was established as a charitable trust with a twist, he explained. It can own for-profit ventures as long as 60% of profits go to designated charities. Your mother chose education initiatives for women in architecture and engineering. And I'm the chairwoman? Irrevocably. Your mother made sure your father could never challenge it. She had 3 psychiatrists evaluate her mental capacity monthly during the entire planning period. Every document is bulletproof. The foundation already controlled pieces of Henderson Development through shell companies. 45% of shares, acquired slowly over 2 years. My father had been signing papers Mom put in front of him, never realizing he was signing away his empire. With the $33 million in assets transferring to the foundation, you'll have enough to buy another 6% on the open market, 51% total control. But the will only transfers if he doesn't violate the clause. He violated it spectacularly, publicly, with hundreds of witnesses. Torres smiled. Your mother even predicted he'd do it at the funeral. She knew his need for control would override his caution when he thought he'd won. The October 25th presentation? Perfect timing. He'll be at his most vulnerable, his ego fully inflated. The entire Boston business community will be watching. When we reveal the truth, he won't be able to spin it or cover it up. An email popped up on my phone. From my father. Your office has been cleaned out. Your belongings are in boxes by the service entrance. Don't make me call security. Torres saw my expression. Let him think he's won. 5 more days, Olivia. October 20th, 11 p.m. The building was mostly empty, just a few late-night workers and security. My keycard had been deactivated, but I still had my maintenance access code, something my father never knew about because he never paid attention to trivial details. The server room hummed with quiet efficiency. Every design, every revision, every timestamp, it was all here. 47 versions of Century Tower, each meticulously logged under my user ID. The metadata couldn't be faked. Creation times at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Hundreds of hours when my father was home sleeping or at his country club. I plugged in my drive, downloading everything. Not just Century Tower. 8 years of projects, all showing the same pattern. My late-night work, his morning presentations. Ms. Henderson? I spun around. Derek, the night security guard who'd watched me enter this building at ungodly hours for years. Hi, Derek. Just getting some personal files. He looked at the server, then at me. I heard what happened at the funeral. Your mom was a good woman. He paused. You know there's security footage of all your late nights? Every entry, every exit. It's backed up off-site for insurance purposes. Really? 7 years worth. Shows you working here until dawn, shows your father arriving at 9 a.m. sharp. He handed me a business card. My cousin works at the backup facility. Tell him I sent you. He can get you copies, legal copies, with authentication certificates. Derek, Your mom brought my daughter soup when she was sick, visited my wife during her chemo. Your father? He shrugged. Doesn't even know my name after 15 years. The files finished downloading. 2 terabytes of proof. Thank you, I whispered. Make it count, he replied. The next morning, my phone buzzed with unexpected messages. 3 senior architects from Henderson Development, all reaching out privately. Saw what happened at the funeral. It's not right. Sarah Chen, sorry, Sarah Smith, lead designer. We all know who really designed Century Tower. Marcus Williams, project manager. Your mother would be proud of you standing up to him. Jennifer Park, senior architect. But the most surprising call came from James Mitchell, chairman of Henderson Development's board of directors. Olivia, we need to talk, privately. We met at a small cafe in Cambridge, away from Boston's business district. Mitchell looked tired, older than his 52 years. I've been on the board for 15 years, he began. I've watched your father take credit for your work since you started. The board noticed. We all knew who really designed Metro Plaza. Then why didn't anyone? Your mother asked us not to. She said she had a plan, that we needed to wait. Eleanor was persuasive, and she was the one who brought most of us onto the board in the first place. He slid a folder across the table. 5 other board members are ready to support a no-confidence vote if given proper cause. Your father's been getting sloppy, arrogant. The funeral stunt disgusted everyone. October 22nd arrived with a formal letter via courier. Your employment with Henderson Development Corporation is terminated effective immediately for failure to meet performance standards. My father had CC'd the entire industry contact list. By noon, LinkedIn was buzzing with comments about nepotism gone wrong and entitled millennials. Mitchell texted me. He just gave us cause. Document everything. Torres responded with just 4 words. Perfect. 3 more days. October 23rd. My father couldn't resist twisting the knife deeper. He'd arranged a press conference at Henderson Development headquarters, officially to preview the Century Tower presentation, but really to publicly destroy me. 50 journalists gathered in the conference room. Boston Business Journal, Globe, even some national outlets covering the massive project. I watched the live stream from Torres's office. Before we discuss Century Tower, my father began, his voice heavy with false regret, I need to address recent personnel changes. It's never easy when family members can't meet professional standards. I tried for 8 years to mentor my daughter, to help her develop real skills. He paused for effect, the consummate performer. Unfortunately, despite every opportunity, she couldn't perform at the level Henderson Development requires. I had to make the difficult decision to terminate her employment. For her own good, really. She needs to find her own path, not ride on her father's coattails. Mr. Henderson, a reporter asked, there are rumors she designed significant portions of Century Tower? My father laughed. Olivia assisted with some basic drafting. Nothing creative, nothing structural. The vision, the innovation, that comes from experience she simply doesn't have. The LinkedIn post started immediately. Henderson CEO shows tough love. When nepotism fails, a cautionary tale. 500 comments within an hour, most supporting my father's difficult but necessary decision. Tomorrow, he announced, you'll see the full Century Tower presentation, my masterpiece. 20 years of experience culminating in Boston's next iconic structure. Torres paused the stream. He's given us everything we need. Public defamation, professional slander, documented lies. He smiled. Your mother would have loved this. He's destroying himself with his own arrogance. My phone buzzed. Derek. Got the footage. 7 years, all authenticated. Ready when you are. This is it. The moment everything changes. 300 of Boston's most powerful people are about to witness the ultimate reversal. What do you think happens when a lifetime of lies gets exposed in front of everyone who matters? Comment your predictions below, and if you're enjoying this story, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. October 24th, Torres's conference room became a war room. 3 lawyers, 2 accountants, and a court reporter worked through every detail. The restraining order is ready, Torres explained. The moment your father violated the clause, the foundation gained legal standing to freeze all disputed assets. Judge Martinez will sign it tomorrow morning, 1 hour before the presentation. We reviewed the evidence one final time. The audio from the funeral, crystal clear. 12 affidavits from witnesses, all notarized. The server logs showing my work. Derek's security footage. 7 years of me entering the building at night, working until dawn. But the most powerful evidence was the video my mother had recorded in June. She looked directly at the camera, her voice steady despite the pain medication. I, Eleanor Henderson, being of sound mind, do testify that my husband, Richard Henderson, has systematically stolen credit for our daughter Olivia's architectural work for 8 years. I have watched him present her designs as his own, deny her rightful recognition, and financially exploit her talents. Century Tower is entirely Olivia's creation. I have the original sketches she drew at our kitchen table, dated and signed. Richard has never drawn a single line of it. This plays after he finishes bragging? I asked. At the perfect moment, when he's showing his designs on the main screen, we'll override the presentation system. The hotel's AV team is already briefed. They have a court order to comply. Mitchell called. The board members are all attending tomorrow. We'll be ready for an emergency vote the moment the truth comes out. That night, I couldn't sleep. Tomorrow, 8 years of humiliation would end. My father would finally face consequences. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Your mom would be so proud. Derek. October 25th, 3 p.m. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Common, 300 chairs filled with the city's elite. The stage held a massive screen displaying the Century Tower logo, my design, his name underneath. I stood at the entrance, my name conspicuously absent from the guest list. I'm sorry, miss, the security guard said. You're not authorized. She's with me. Torres appeared with a court order. Judge Martinez requires Ms. Henderson's presence for legal proceedings. We entered just as my father took the stage. He looked imperial in his Italian suit, basking in the attention. The mayor sat front row. 8 major investment firms had representatives present. The Globe's architecture critic held his recorder ready. Ladies and gentlemen, my father began, today you'll witness the culmination of my life's work. Century Tower isn't just a building, it's a revolution in sustainable urban design. The screen showed my first sketches. He'd even kept my handwritten notes in the margins, too arrogant to notice they were in my handwriting. Every line, every angle, represents decades of experience and innovation. This morning, 8 firms committed $200 million in funding based on these designs, my designs. Mitchell caught my eye from the board section. He nodded slightly. 5 other board members sat ready. My father clicked to the next slide, the environmental systems I'd spent 6 months perfecting. The energy efficiency alone will save 30% annually. I conceived this system after years of studying. Torres stood up. Excuse me, Mr. Henderson. The room turned. My father's smile flickered. I'm afraid there's a legal matter that requires immediate attention. This is a private event, with a court order superseding privacy. Torres walked toward the stage. Shall we continue? My father's recovery was swift, his salesman's instincts kicking in. He actually smiled wider, gesturing dismissively at Torres. Everyone, please excuse this minor interruption. My lawyer friend here must be confused about the venue. Perhaps we can address whatever this is after. I insist we address it now, Torres said firmly, now standing at the base of the stage. My father laughed, playing to the crowd. You see the challenges of success? Even at moments of triumph, there are always complications. He looked directly at me, finally noticing my presence. Some people can't accept when they're not part of the story. The audience shifted uncomfortably, but my father pressed on, clicking to the next slide, the crown jewel of the presentation. This atrium design will redefine public spaces in commercial buildings. Notice the mathematical precision, the artistic vision. It took me months to perfect these angles, to balance beauty with function. I knew those angles intimately. I'd calculated them during Mom's chemotherapy sessions, finding peace in the precision while she slept. 10 years of my expertise went into this project, he continued, his voice growing more grandiose, which is why I had to make difficult decisions about my team. Some people simply weren't capable of understanding this level of sophistication. The mayor nodded approvingly. The investors leaned forward, captivated. In fact, just this week I had to terminate an employee who claimed credit for this work. Can you imagine? An intern with no real experience trying to steal recognition for Century Tower? Gasps rippled through the audience. He was publicly destroying me in front of everyone who mattered in Boston. Sometimes, he said, looking straight at me, people need to learn their place. Torres pulled out his phone. Mr. Henderson, are you finished? I'm just getting started. Perfect. So are we. Torres walked onto the stage with the confidence of a man holding 4 aces. The court order in his hand caught the light as he approached the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption, but this is a matter of legal urgency. He held up the document. This is a court order from Judge Martinez, signed this morning, regarding the estate of Eleanor Henderson and the rightful ownership of the intellectual property being presented today. My father's face shifted from annoyance to concern. This is highly inappropriate. What's inappropriate, Mr. Henderson, is fraud. Torres's voice carried across the silent ballroom. On October 18th, at Eleanor Henderson's funeral, you violated a binding legal clause in her estate documents. He pulled out his phone and connected it to the sound system. My father lunged for the microphone, but Torres stepped aside. 200 witnesses heard you say this to your daughter. The recording played crystal clear through the ballroom's speakers. Find somewhere else to die. Your mother isn't here to protect you anymore. Gasps echoed through the room. The mayor's mouth fell open. Several people pulled out their phones, recording. This triggered an addendum to Eleanor Henderson's will, Torres continued. All assets, including the $33 million you thought you inherited, immediately transferred to the Eleanor Henderson Foundation. Olivia Henderson is the permanent chairwoman of that foundation. This is ridiculous. Furthermore, Torres raised his voice over my father's protests. The foundation already owns 45% of Henderson Development Corporation through holdings Eleanor established over the past 2 years. With the inherited assets, Ms. Henderson now controls 51% of the company you claim to run. The board members stood up. Mitchell spoke clearly. We need an emergency board meeting, now. I walked onto the stage carrying my laptop and a USB drive. The ballroom was dead silent, 300 pairs of eyes tracking my movement. My father stood frozen, his face cycling through disbelief, rage, and fear. Since we're discussing Century Tower, I said, my voice steady, let's look at the real story. I plugged the USB into the presentation system. The screen changed, showing file metadata. 47 versions of Century Tower designs, every single one created under my user ID. Look at the timestamps, 2:47 a.m., 3:15 a.m., 4:32 a.m. While Mr. Henderson was sleeping, I was creating his masterpiece. The screen shifted to security footage. 7 years of surveillance video, authenticated by Building Sec Systems. Here I am, January 15th, working until dawn on Metro Plaza. February 9th, all night on Harbor Square. March through September this year, 212 hours, logged after midnight, all on Century Tower. Derek had included a compilation reel. The audience watched me enter the building in darkness and leave at sunrise, day after day, year after year. James Mitchell stood up. I can confirm this. The board has suspected for years that Olivia was the true architect behind Henderson Development's success. The screen changed again. My mother's face appeared, thin but fierce. I, Eleanor Henderson, being of sound mind, do testify that my husband, Richard Henderson, has systematically stolen credit for our daughter Olivia's architectural work for 8 years. The room erupted. Journalists typed frantically. Investors pulled out phones, making urgent calls. "Every design you've seen today," I said, looking at the audience, not my father. "Every innovation you've admired, I created them. The evidence is irrefutable. The truth is finally public." My father's mouth moved, but no sound came out. Torres returned to the microphone, his voice cutting through the chaos. "As of this moment, the Eleanor Henderson Foundation legally owns all disputed assets, the $33 million, the properties, and most significantly, 51% of Henderson Development Corporation." He turned to my father. "Mr. Henderson, you no longer have controlling interest in the company you've been running." 3 investors in the front row stood up immediately. "We're withdrawing our memorandums of understanding," one announced. "We invested in Century Tower based on fraudulent representations." "Our $200 million commitment is void," another added. My father finally found his voice. "This is entrapment. It's a setup." "It's justice," Mitchell said, stepping onto the stage. "As chairman of the board, I'm calling an emergency meeting right now. All board members present?" 11 hands raised in the audience. "Motion to vote no confidence in CEO Richard Henderson." "Seconded," called another board member. "All in favor?" 11 hands shot up. Only my father's remained down. "Motion carries. Richard Henderson, you are terminated as CEO of Henderson Development Corporation, effective immediately." Security guards appeared at the stage edges, not to remove me this time, but to escort my father if necessary. "The board nominates Olivia Henderson as interim CEO," Mitchell continued. I stepped forward. "I appreciate the nomination, but I decline. I'll serve as Chief Design Officer, the role I've actually been filling for 8 years. The board can search for a CEO who leads with integrity." The audience erupted in applause. My father stood alone on the stage, his empire crumbling in real time. "You can't do this," he whispered. "It's already done," Torres replied. "Your wife made sure of that." The board's decision was swift and surgical. Mitchell maintained order as my father's world collapsed in real time. "We also need to address the false representation to investors," Mitchell announced. "Mr. Henderson, you've exposed this company to massive liability by claiming credit for designs you didn't create." My father grabbed the microphone one last time. "This is my company. I built it from nothing." "With your wife's money and your daughter's talent," Mitchell countered. "Security, please escort Mr. Henderson from the stage." 2 guards approached. My father backed away, his face purple with rage. "You ungrateful!" He pointed at me. "After everything I've done for you." "You mean everything you've stolen from me?" I kept my voice level, professional. 8 years of my work, 45,000 a year while you build my designs at 200 an hour. That ends today." The mayor stood up, clearly distancing himself. "I think I've seen enough. The city will be reviewing all Henderson development contracts for potential fraud." A Boston Globe reporter raised her hand. "Ms. Henderson, will you continue with Century Tower?" "Absolutely, but with full transparency about who designed it. The contracts will be amended to reflect the truth." "What about your father's role?" I looked at him, still standing between the security guards. "The board will determine if there's any position suitable for his actual skills." "I suggest advisory consultant," Mitchell said. "Limited authority, reporting to the chief design officer, if he accepts." My father's humiliation was complete. From CEO to consultant, reporting to the daughter he'd exploited. "Never," he spat. "Then you have no role at all," Mitchell replied simply. "Your choice." The guards escorted him toward the exit, past 300 witnesses to his downfall. As security led my father toward the exit, he made one last desperate attempt to salvage something. "This is a conspiracy. My wife was mentally incompetent when she made these changes. I'll challenge every document." Torres pulled out his tablet. Eleanor anticipated that claim. She had 3 independent psychiatrists evaluate her monthly from January to September 2024. all confirmed her complete mental competence. Would you like to see the reports? My father stopped struggling. The fight drained from his face as the full scope of Mom's planning became clear. His phone rang. He answered on speaker, probably from habit. Richard, this is Charles from the country club. The board held an emergency vote. Your membership has been revoked, effective immediately. Another call came through immediately. Mr. Henderson, Boston Business Alliance, your keynote at next month's summit has been canceled. The Globe photographer captured it perfectly. My father, phone in hand, watching his entire social structure collapse. The photo would run on tomorrow's front page under the headline, Henderson's House of Cards. Dad, I said quietly. Everyone turned to listen. Mom left you a letter. It's in the foundation documents. Torres handed him an envelope. My father's hands shook as he opened it. I knew what it said. Mom had shown me her draft. Richard, I gave you 30 years to be the man I thought you were. You chose differently. I'm protecting Olivia not from spite, but from love. The foundation will support you with a reasonable salary if you work honestly. Your choice, as always. He crumpled the letter. I don't need charity from my dead wife or ungrateful daughter. Then you need to leave, Mitchell said firmly. Now. Security escorted him out. 300 people watched in silence as Richard Henderson left his own event in disgrace. Within an hour, the story exploded across every platform. The Globe's website crashed from traffic. Breaking: Henderson's CEO exposed in elaborate fraud. Daughter reveals 8 years of stolen designs. By October 26th, it was trending #1 in Boston. Century Tower. Truth had 2.3 million views. The security footage compilation Derek had provided went viral, a time-lapse of me working through thousands of nights while my father took credit for every sunrise. CNN Business picked it up by noon. The Architecture of Deception: How One Woman Exposed Corporate Fraud from Within. Forbes ran a profile. Olivia Henderson, the real genius behind Boston's skyline. My phone exploded with messages. 15 architecture firms offered me partnerships. MIT called wanting me to speak at their Women in Architecture Symposium. The American Institute of Architects fast-tracked my fellowship application. But the most meaningful responses came from other women in the industry. Thank you for being brave enough to speak up. Your story gave me courage to document my own situation. My boss has been stealing my designs for 3 years. I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow. The Wall Street Journal's analysis was particularly damaging to my father. Henderson Development stock rose 12% following leadership change, suggesting investors have more confidence in transparent management. Torres forwarded me a compilation of metrics: 450,000 shares of the story in 48 hours, international coverage in 12 countries, 3 documentary producers requesting interviews. Your mother would be amazed, he said. She hoped for justice. This is a revolution. The Century Tower investors reconvened that afternoon. All 8 major firms reinstated their commitments, but with one condition. I had to be the lead architect on record. Finally, one said, we know we're investing in the real talent. The transformation at Henderson Development was immediate and thorough. Mitchell led the board through a complete restructuring over the next week. First order of business: forensic audit of all projects. Every design, every credit, every signature. 5 senior architects who'd been complicit in my father's deception were terminated with cause. They'd signed their names to my work, knowing the truth. Clean house, clean slate, Mitchell announced at the all-hands meeting. We implemented the Attribution Transparency Protocol. Every design contribution tracked, credited, and compensated fairly. Junior architects would never again see their work stolen. The Century Tower partners demanded a meeting with me directly, no intermediaries. In the same Ritz-Carlton ballroom where my father had fallen, I presented the complete, truthful vision. Every innovation, every calculation, with my name rightfully attached. This changes everything, the lead investor said. We're not just funding a building, We're funding a new generation of ethical leadership. They increased the commitment to 500 million, with additional funding for a mentorship program I proposed, bringing young female architects into major projects. Stock price climbed another 8%. The financial press attributed it to restored confidence in leadership integrity. Three major clients who'd been considering leaving Henderson Development reversed their decisions. We stay with companies that own their mistakes and fix them, one explained. Sarah Smith, who'd supported me privately, became the new head of design implementation. Marcus Williams took over project management. Jennifer Park was promoted to senior partner. The talent was always here, I told the board. It was just being suppressed by one man's ego. By November 1st, Henderson Development had become a case study in successful crisis management through radical transparency. Harvard Business School requested permission to teach our story. The family aftermath was predictably complex. Relatives who'd been silent for years suddenly remembered I existed. Aunt Linda, my father's sister, called within days. Olivia, darling, I always knew you were the talented one. Your father could never have designed something so brilliant. You were at the funeral, Linda. You heard what he said. You said nothing. Well, family dynamics are complicated. They're not. You chose his money over my dignity. That's simple. She hung up. Three other relatives tried similar approaches, all wanting to reconnect now that I controlled the fortune. I established a simple policy. Anyone who stood by silently didn't get to celebrate loudly. Uncle Harold was different. Mom's brother had slipped me Torres's card, the first breadcrumb on the trail to justice. Your mother planned this for 2 years, he told me over coffee. She made me promise to act only if your father crossed the line at the funeral. She knew he would. His cruelty is strongest when he thinks he's won, she said. Why didn't she act sooner? She wanted to give him chances to change. Even dying, she hoped he'd show some humanity. The will's clause was her final test. He paused. She also wanted to make sure you were strong enough to handle what came after. My father maintained complete silence for 3 months. No calls, no texts, no contact through lawyers. He'd moved from the family home to a downtown apartment, his penthouse sold to cover legal fees and debts. Then I found something that changed everything. In Mom's safe, beneath legal documents, were 53 letters she'd written to me over 2 years. One for each week of her planning, explaining every decision, every protection she'd put in place. My darling girl, if you're reading this, you've already won. By January 2025, my father's complete fall from grace was thoroughly documented. The country club revocations stood. His name was quietly removed from charity boards, professional associations, and social registers. The financial consequences were severe but not cruel. The foundation provided him a living allowance, comfortable but not luxurious. He'd never starve, but he'd never again live in penthouses or drive Italian sports cars. The social consequences cut deeper. Boston's elite operated on reputation and relationships. Both were irreparably damaged. Former friends crossed streets to avoid him. Business partners refused his calls. The mayor's office removed him from all city advisory positions. Then, 3 months after the revelation, a formal letter arrived at the foundation. Handwritten, not typed. My father's distinctive script, but somehow different. Smaller, more careful. Olivia, I've spent 3 months in therapy, mandated by the board if I want any role at the company. Dr. Brennan has forced me to confront truths I've avoided for 60 years. I see now what I refused to see for 32 years. You were the talent, the vision, the future. I was just the salesman who got lucky marrying your mother and fathering you. My narcissism, that's what Dr. Brennan calls it, made me believe I deserved credit for everything around me. Your mother's connections, your designs, even the foundation's mercy now. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for the chance to earn a small place in the company I claimed to build, but you actually created. Richard. Mitchell brought it to the board. He's requesting the advisory position, Limited hours, reporting to Olivia, focusing only on vendor relationships where he actually has expertise. What do you think? They asked me. He can have 3 months probation, one false claim, one stolen credit, and he's gone forever. That's generous. It's what Mom would want. 6 months later, March 2025. The Century Tower groundbreaking ceremony drew 1,000 attendees. The mayor spoke about Boston's new era of transparent development. The governor praised ethical leadership in corporate America. I stood at the podium where my father had fallen, but I felt no satisfaction in the parallel. This wasn't about revenge, it was about building something real. Century Tower rises not from deception but from truth, I began. Every beam, every angle, every innovation comes from acknowledged talent and credited work. This building will stand as proof that integrity and success aren't mutually exclusive. My father sat in row 10, not on the stage, not in VIP seating. He wore a simple suit, not Italian. He took notes during my speech, actually listening for perhaps the first time. Henderson Development's transformation was complete. Revenue up 30% under transparent leadership. Employee satisfaction scores at an all-time high. The attribution system had become an industry model, adopted by firms nationwide. The Eleanor Henderson Foundation had distributed $5 million to MIT, funding scholarships for women in architecture. 23 young women were already enrolled, their tuition covered, their talents nurtured. Success built on lies will always crumble, I told the crowd. But success built on truth? That creates legacy. After the ceremony, my father approached. We'd had 6 months of limited interaction, professional only. The speech was excellent, he said quietly. Your mother would be proud. She knew this day would come. She knew everything, didn't she? She knew enough. He nodded, started to leave, then turned back. I'm proud too. For what that's worth now. It's worth something, I said. Not everything, not yet, but something. The new boundaries with my father were clear, professional, and non-negotiable. Monthly dinners, last Thursday of each month, 7 to 9 p.m. exactly. Not at the family home. That had been sold. Proceeds to the foundation. We met at quiet restaurants, public but not prominent. How's the Riverside project? He'd ask. On schedule. The client appreciates the transparent billing. I remember when I pitched them initially. When you pitched them my preliminary designs, yes. He'd wince but no longer argue. Dr. Brennan had apparently made progress. At the office, interaction was strictly professional. He attended vendor meetings, where his relationships still had value, but every email went through Jennifer Park first. Every suggestion was documented. Trust, once shattered, couldn't be rebuilt with apologies alone. I've been thinking about the Morrison account, he said during one dinner. Submit it through proper channels. Even for casual observations? Especially for those, we document everything now. The hardest conversation came in April. I want to apologize publicly, he said. Dr. Brennan thinks it would help. Help who? Me, obviously, but maybe others too. Men like me who've stolen credit, who've suppressed talent. A public apology would seem performative now. Then what would be enough? Time, consistency, years of respecting boundaries without pushing them. You stole 8 years from me. You don't get to rush redemption. He accepted it. What choice did he have? We're colleagues, I told him firmly. Not the family we were before, not enemies, but professional associates with a complicated history. That's all we may ever be. Your mother hoped for more. Mom hoped for a lot of things. She settled for protecting me instead. That's her real legacy, knowing when hope isn't enough. In the end, my mother's greatest gift wasn't the money or even the company control. It was the permission to choose myself. Her final letter, dated 1 week before she died, laid it all out. My dearest Olivia, if you're reading this, your father has shown you who he really is, and you've shown the world who you really are. I didn't give you wealth. That was always yours. earned through your brilliant mind and dedicated hands. I simply created a mechanism for truth to surface. Power isn't about controlling others. It's about creating something meaningful, something that outlasts our individual egos. Your designs will stand for generations. Your father's lies have already crumbled. I stayed longer than I should have, hoping he would change, hoping you'd never need these protections. But hope without action is just delusion. So I acted, quietly, carefully, building a fortress of legal documents and financial structures that would activate only if needed. You may wonder why I didn't do this sooner. The truth is, I needed to know you were ready, not just for the confrontation, but for what comes after. Power requires wisdom. Success demands grace. You have both now. Don't seek revenge. Seek restoration of your name, your work, your worth. Set boundaries not as walls, but as bridges with toll gates. Some people earn free passage through consistent respect. Others pay the price of limited access. And some find the bridge permanently closed. All three are valid choices. Your father is who he is. That's his burden to carry. Your burden is choosing how much of his weight you'll help bear. Choose wisely. Choose based on your healing, not his comfort. Build beautiful things, my darling. Build them with truth. All my love, Mom. I folded the letter, returning it to the safe. Tomorrow, Century Tower's first beam would be placed. My name would be on the cornerstone, finally, rightfully. The foundation had grown to 100 million in assets. The mentorship program had expanded nationwide. My story had inspired legislative proposals for attribution rights in creative industries. But tonight, I stood in my own apartment, bought with my own money, looking at my own designs on my own drafting table. No one else's name would ever overshadow mine again. That's the real inheritance my mother left me. The unshakable knowledge that I deserve to be seen, credited, and valued for exactly who I am. Boundaries aren't cruel, they're necessary. Self-respect isn't selfish, it's survival. And sometimes, the greatest love a parent can show is teaching their child when to stop hoping and start protecting themselves. That's where my story ends, but hopefully where yours begins. If you're dealing with family members who diminish your worth or steal your light, remember, you deserve recognition for your contributions. You deserve respect for your boundaries. And you deserve relationships that honor who you really are. Thank you for listening. You are worthy. You are enough. And you don't need anyone else's signature on your life's work.